What's up, guys? Well, I'm doing another video for you this evening. So, obviously, as you know, it's been almost 2 weeks since the young girl went missing in the River Thames. Now, it's been confirmed that a body was found in the River Thames in East London this morning, just after 9 a.m. Obviously, the parents will have to go and identify the body, but obviously, looks like they may have found the body of 11-year-old kaliyah, who went missing in the Thames, as I said, almost 2 weeks ago. I mean, obviously, as I've said before, this is a tragic incident, there is one thing I will say. I do apologise for saying that her parents, obviously her dad, she had called her dad and asked her dad if she could go paddling in the Thames, and obviously he let her do that. But obviously that may not have been true, and I apologise if I did get that wrong. I hold my hands up and admit, probably did get that wrong, and I hold my hands up on that one. But I mean, I think this is good news for her family. It would give her parents that kind of closure now, that her body's been found. Obviously at least they can now start, planning, um, although it's going to be obviously hard for them to do it, but at least they can now start planning her funeral and, all that kind of thing really. At least at least they can start doing all of that now. To be honest, I've been proven wrong because I did originally say, well, I did say the other day that I didn't think they were gonna find her body. I wasn't 100% certain that they would. But at least they have done. Well, if this is her body, which well, there's probably a good chance that that it is her body. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it's sad, but it's also good news, as I said, for her family, because it gives them that closure that they really need. Now that obviously her body's been found, they can start planning the funeral and things like that. So this is good for them. This is very good news for them. It gives them that chance to start planning the funeral now, and obviously which will undoubtedly be, a very hard task and a hard thing for them to do, but at least, you know, at least, her body's been found and they can start to plan that out now and all that kind of thing and lay their daughter to rest, I suppose. I mean, yeah, it is sad though, isn't it? 11 years old, you lose your life, just like that, gone like that, I can't imagine how her parents must be feeling right now. Like, it must be. I mean, obviously, I can imagine they're devastated by it, and also imagine they're probably somewhat relieved in a way that her body's obviously been found now. Obviously, after almost 2 weeks, they can now start properly planning stuff now because obviously her body's been found. And that is obviously good news, for her family, and obviously it will come as a great relief for them, now that they have that closure, and obviously that at least they can now start planning, for her funeral and everything, which is good news for them. That it's what they need. That at least they've gotten that closure now. They can start planning for her funeral and everything. So yeah, good news, I would say. I mean, I as I said, I do still feel sorry. Feel very sorry for her family. Nobody should have to go. Should have to bury a child. You know, goes without saying that no parent should ever have to do that. And the fact that any parent, you look and you think, well, why should any parent have to lay their child to rest? It's just terrible, really. A terrible set of circumstances. But I don't want to say it, but maybe it had been prevented. I honestly don't know. Maybe it was preventable. Um, but yeah, at least her parents have gotten that closure now. Obviously, her body's been found. They can start planning her funeral now. They can start making those arrangements. And things like that. I mean, obviously, as I said, it's a horrible situation. It really is. Like, there's no good way to describe this, this in itself. It's just terrible what happened. Really, really terrible. And yeah, but as I said, I'm glad for her. I'm happy for her family because at least they'll get that closure now. In a way, obviously, they've gotten that. At least they've gotten that closure now that she is doing okay. I suppose that she's doing. At least she is okay. At least she's well. I suppose. Um, there's not. I don't really know what to say, to be honest. Like I can't imagine. You know how difficult this past couple of weeks has been for them, but it must be kind of it must be huge. But I mean, obviously, they're not, they're not going to get their daughter back, but it must be a relief for them knowing that obviously her body's been found, which is good news. I think a lot of people would see it as good news, and as I said, I didn't think they were going to find her body, but at least they have done now. At least that, that's one good thing. They have found her body, and they start, that's one. I think, I'm just happy for her family, and I'm glad for them, that they've gotten that closure, to be honest. At least the search, I should say, is very much over at this point. The found, obviously her body's been found, and, that is, whatever way you see it, it is a good thing. They found her body, that's, great news. It is great news. Um, and I think it's a positive thing. I mean, yeah, it's sad that she's lost her life, but the positive thing is that at least her body's been found. That is one good thing. Her body was found, as I said this morning, just after 9 a.m. Um, to be honest, I was surprised. I thought it would be a lot further. They found it. They found her body in the Thames in East London. That surprises me that her body was still in that. That's still down. This part of the Thames, the East End part of the Thames. I thought, to be honest, I actually thought her body would have gone out to sea by now. Because it's been what, nearly 2 weeks, and you're thinking, well, that's what I had thought. To be honest, I had kind of thought that her body had probably gone out to sea. That was why I was thinking they weren't going to find her body, but at least they have done. And I think it's always nice for a family, to get that bit of closure, and at least have, I mean, yeah, they've not found her alive, which they were never going to after all this time, but at least, her parents have in some way gotten that closure, to be honest. I think that's, you can't help but feel relieved for them because they've gotten that closure that they really needed. They've gotten that closure that they were, that they needed, and that is one good thing. You know, so yeah, I'm glad they've gotten that closure, to be honest. Um, and obviously now comes the hardest part. Now that comes the part where they've got to lay their child to rest, which I can imagine is a very hard and painful thing to do. And that's probably putting it mildly. That is probably putting it mildly. But I think I can't imagine how much of a painful thing it is to have to lay your child to rest. But that's what they got to do now. That's what they got to. Obviously they've got to start planning that now, haven't they? So yeah, I thought I would come on and obviously do that. Obviously give that update tonight. I thought it'd be a good little update to do. And as I said, my apologies for saying, I do want to do my apologies for saying that obviously had that, she phoned her dad and asked her dad if she had had it, and her dad had said yes. But I understand that might not have been necessarily the case, and I was probably saying something that wasn't actually true, and I held my hands up and admit I do apologise for that. I probably shouldn't have been. I probably should have been careful about what I was saying because I was probably saying stuff that wasn't actually true, like giving information that wasn't particularly true. But yeah, So as I said, I'm just so relieved for her family. Like, I'm so relieved for her parents that, you know, obviously the police have found her body, you know, and then obviously they've gotten that closure, you know. Because that's all any parent wants, is to get that closure, and the fact they've now gotten that, it's a good feeling for them, you know, because, you know, it's what they needed. They needed that closure, and they've now gotten that closure now, and, you know, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. Oh, yeah, I'm still recording. Oopsie. I thought I'd finished with it there, so yeah. See you for another video soon. Ignore the moments of silence there. Don't know why, I was just in the middle of doing something. I'm kind of recording my video and filming at the same time, so I'll see you for another video soon anyway. Bye bye.